Last night, Donald Trump sat down for an interview with the right wing sycophants at Newsmax, and it was predictably unhinged. Among other things, Trump indicated that he won the 2020 election when, in fact, he lost it. He suggested that violent January 6th insurrectionists should receive reparations. He suggested that he reinvented the word groceries, and he also suggested that liberal billionaire George Soros and others like him are behind the attacks on Tesla. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to play from this recent Newsmax interview. I know some of you probably watch these and you're like, Jesus, I feel like I'm being waterboarded. And I get it. I feel the same way. But you have to remember that Donald Trump is, alongside Elon Musk, the most powerful man on earth. He's the president of the United States. And his mental state and derangement and corruption are worth tracking because they will have material impacts on the rest of us and everybody we love. So we have to keep track of this. So brace yourselves, get ready, hunker down. Here we go.
What it was, we believe, is somebody that was on the line with permission, somebody that was with Mike Waltz, worked for Mike Waltz at a lower level, had, I guess, Goldberg's number or called through the app, and somehow this guy ended up on the call. Now, it wasn't classified, as I understand it. There was no classified information. There was no problem, and the attack was a tremendous success. So I can only go by what I've been told. I wasn't involved in it, but I was told by, and the other people weren't involved at all. But I feel very comfortable.
So this was before the second bombshell follow-up this morning, in which Goldberg released screen captures of the signal messages confirming that there were indeed highly sensitive classified war plans leaked to him and that Michael Waltz was the one who added him to the Signal chat group. So this bullshit conspiracy theory is indeed just that. Here's another clip.
They talked about the price of groceries and how expensive it was. And I campaigned on it, in all fairness. I haven't used the word grocery. It's like an old-fashioned word, but really it's not. And people understand it. And I campaigned very hard on groceries, and they're coming down very much. If you look at your gasoline prices, it's really coming down tremendously, and that's bringing other prices down with it. So, I mean, I have really great people, but it took a period of time. You know,
I love this. It's so funny to me. Again, gas and grocery prices skyrocketed on Trump's watch. The economic indicators regarding a recession, for example, are blinking bright red in ways they weren't under President Biden. But the funny thing for me is how he pats himself on the back for the word groceries. You know, the word groceries, like nobody used it before. This is not the first time he said shit like this, by the way. Like he gets in this like particular dialogue loop, and he pulls it out during random interviews when he's struggling to, you know, have some sort of like neural activity, you know, the synapses and the neurons are not firing properly. So he's like, wait, do the grocery thing, do the grocery thing. And the Newsmax host, Greg Kelly's like, that's true, Mr. President. Yeah, nobody did use the word groceries until you came along. Pathetic, sycophantic shit, but we'll continue.
but I took care of them. I said I was going to, and I did.
Is there any talk of, because they lost opportunity, they lost income, any kind of compensation fund?
Well, there's talk about that. We have a lot of people talk about it. A lot of the people that are in government now talk about it because a lot of the people in government really like that group of people. They were patriots as far as I was concerned. I talk about them a lot. They were treated very unfairly. You know, the thing they show is they show a group of 1,000, whatever it may have been, 1,500 people down. What they don't show, you never see the crowd that day. It was the biggest crowd I've ever spoken before. It went all the way to the Washington Monument. It was so wide, you virtually couldn't see anything else but people. They never show that. Whether it was 1 million people or less than 1 million, I don't know what it was, but you know, I see Bernie Sanders has a few people out there. They say, oh, the crowd is so big. They don't talk about the crowds. But a group of people went down there peacefully and patriotically. Remember that, you know.
Right. So again, indicating that there should be some sort of government fund to compensate the violent January 6th insurrectionists that he pardoned. He's, of course, obsessing, spinning wheels over crowd sizes. No one's saying that Bernie Sanders is pulling crowd sizes like him. Bernie Sanders is popular, but he doesn't have a cult of personality, number one. Number two, he's not the president. Number three, he's not a celebrity the way that Trump is. Number four, it's not an election year. Not sure why he keeps doing this point of comparison. I think he's still triggered over the fact that President Obama's inaugural crowd exceeded Donald Trump's both times. I think it's like some sort of Freudian issue with him. But again, just goes to show where his priorities are. So they commit a violent insurrection on your behalf. They fail. You pardon them, give them a clean sweep, and then you want taxpayers to subsidize some sort of compensation for them. When I suppose if you really wanted to, given that it's only 1,500 people and you're a billionaire, right, you could probably do it yourself. But again, just goes to show his necrotic brain, once again acting in a selfish, authoritarian way. Here's another clip.
Tesla violence. Have you heard anything about billionaires on the left, whether it's Soros or somebody else? Have you heard anything about planning, coordination, funding for these attacks?
I believe that is part of it. Yeah, there are some of them that were involved with my trials that were, I think, probably involved with that also. And, Elon's done a very good job. He's found tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse, like levels you've never seen. People that don't show up to work and they get checks. I mean, so many different things.
So this has been fact-checked to hell and back. Doge has not found tremendous waste, fraud, and abuse. Fraud is a crime. Nobody's been prosecuted for it, which is one giveaway. Number two, Doge's their findings have been fact-checked to hell and back. It's been one clown show performance after another. Oh, we saved an $8 billion contract, or we cut it. We saved the American taxpayers $8 billion. And it turns out it was $8 million, orders of magnitude less. They fire workers who tend to the nuclear stockpile, then desperately have to hire them back. It's been one clown show after another, but the savings have simply not manifested. And despite the claims of high savings, they have yet to substantiate those claims. So again, he's just objectively wrong, per usual. Here's another clip.
We're hearing that maybe Russia is dragging its feet at this point, and Zelensky has shown some open.
That reminds me real quick regarding the central claim, right? So you have Greg Kelly here teeing it up. Okay, well, all this Tesla vandalism, it must be because of like activist billionaires like George Soros, right? Like George Soros, the ultimate right-wing boogeyman. And Donald Trump says, yeah, we're hearing things like that. But again, doesn't substantiate the claim whatsoever. Doesn't bother to offer any evidence, probably because there is no evidence that George Soros had anything to do, or any liberal billionaire like Mark Cuban had anything to do with this. But this is where Newsmax's brain goes, it must be some sort of like orchestrated conspiracy theory by the elite or by the deep state. Never mind that he's talking to a real estate billionaire who also happens to be the president of the United States, who also happens to be co-presidents with the world's richest man. The irony is so thick you could cut it with a butter knife, but we'll continue. Here's another clip.
The family of Ashli Babbitt is suing the government, wrongful death. The DOJ right now officially is still opposing that lawsuit, trying to justify it. Shouldn't that be something that can just be settled at this point?
Well, I'll look into that. I mean, you're just telling me that for the first time. I haven't heard that. I'm a big fan of Ashli Babbitt, okay? And Ashli Babbitt was a really good person who was a big MAGA fan, Trump fan, and she was innocently standing there. They even say trying to sort of hold back the crowd.
What crowd are they trying to hold back, Trump? See, this is so much to unpack here. Ashli Babbitt was, I believe, an Air Force veteran, so she swore an oath to the Constitution, which makes her disgraceful, treacherous turn into the cult of Trump even more disgraceful, because she had a higher obligation to uphold the Constitution, even if it came into contradiction with her personal politics or her preferred political candidate. When you swear an oath to the Constitution and a candidate of your preferred political party does something to violate the Constitution, your loyalty to the Constitution should trump your political loyalty. And it doesn't matter if you're liberal, conservative, progressive, libertarian, Democrat, Republican, it shouldn't matter. What Ashli Babbitt proved, unfortunately, because she'd been radicalized by that point, is that she cared more about Donald Trump than her constitutional oath. And she was shot because she tried to break into I believe it was the House, it was either the Senate or the House floor. It was one of the two. It was the legislature to attack lawmakers during the January 6th insurrection. She was warned repeatedly not to come through the door, because the officers behind the door were going to shoot in not only self-defense, but in defense of duly elected lawmakers. And she did not heed them, and she was shot and killed. And it's a tragedy in the sense that she was a cult member, in some ways victimized by Trump, but she was not an innocent person. She did break the law. She broke the law in a way to try to attack people in her cultish devotion to Trump. Certainly not a hero by any stretch, but again, Greg Kelly's trying to get Trump to order the Justice Department to simply settle and give Ashli Babbitt's family a payout for something they quite frankly don't deserve, given their daughter's conduct. Some people might find that cruel. It's just the God's honest truth. So, yeah, so you see where this is going. I mean, there are more clips here. That's why I said like I almost feel like I'm being waterboarded by this shit. I guess I'll play one here in which Trump praises Democratic Senate leader Chuck Schumer over his recent decision to support the Republican continuing resolution.
So I wrote him a letter when he said we shouldn't go out, and he was right about that. He was killed, but I wrote him a letter saying, "Dear Chuck, congratulations, you made a great and wise decision, and it's really good for the country what you did." Well, he got excoriated because of that letter, because they thought I was doing a little bit of shtick on him, and I wasn't. It was a serious letter.
I mean, I don't know if it was a serious letter or not, but the point is, it certainly worked to Trump's benefit that Chuck Schumer kept the government open in this situation rather than allowing a Republican shutdown to unfold, which is what it would have been. When Republicans are in power and they control the Senate, as they do, but they need additional votes to pass their legislation, then they have an obligation to reach out and try to work in good faith with the opposition. Notice I said try, because if at the very least Republicans could come back and say, hey, listen, we tried repeatedly to get Chuck to sit down with us and to negotiate. We weren't going to give him everything, but we recognized we had to give him some things, and we either refused to meet us or we just couldn't meet in the middle. That would be one thing, right? That's what Democrats try to do when they're in power and they need Republican votes. But the Republicans didn't bother to do that. They didn't attempt to negotiate with Chuck Schumer, probably because, well, two reasons. They don't care if the government shuts down. They probably don't want it to, but their entire philosophy is, government sucks, right? So it's not like they're emotionally invested in the government staying open, even though it'd probably be politically advantageous if it had stayed open. But number two, more likely, they could probably also bank on Chuck Schumer and enough Democrats doing exactly what they did, which is roll over without concession. So this is, again, just further vindication that Chuck Schumer made the wrong decision. Again, a couple more clips we could play, but my soul is withering away, so we're going to play one last clip of Greg Kelly really debasing himself.
DOJ, you said that certain people, a lot of people, they're really susceptible to criticism. The judges, they don't want to be talked about on cable news. That doesn't bother you. And my question to you is, did you learn that like in the 70s or 80s? Were you born that way? You are very different in the best possible way, but not many people are like you.
Well, I'd be able to lead a much different life, but in terms of what I'm doing for the country, it would never be able to get done.
What exactly is he doing for the country? Well, he's presiding over a potential economic recession that need not happen. What else are you accomplishing? You're causing mass slashes to the federal government in ways that aren't surgical or particularly responsible. You're humiliating yourself with the shortest honeymoon period in presidential history. You're still the least popular president in modern American history. I don't know exactly what it is you're doing of consequence. You're also presiding over an administration so clownish that they accidentally leaked highly sensitive classified military information to a reporter that you despise because you guys are so objectively stupid. Yeah, really, really strange stuff. Again, an unhinged interview with an unhinged host and certainly an unhinged guest. But we have to keep track of this stuff because whether we like it or not, for the next 4 years, Donald Trump is the most powerful man on earth, and his mental state and what he says and what he does matter to everyone, including those of us who rightly see him as an authoritarian threat. Pretty sobering stuff. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.